It was October 2017, close to 9:30 at night, when my Honda City coughed once and went silent on Route 17C, just west of Owego. Right in the middle of the bend everyone in that part of the state calls Devil's Elbow. No warning lights, no grinding, no shimmy or fade, just silence, sudden and absolute, under a roof being hammered by rain. I'd taken 17C back from a friend's place in Binghamton to dodge the construction delays on I-86. Saving 20 minutes seemed reasonable at the time. The stretch of 17C west of Owego has a long reputation. Devil's Elbow is a blind S-curve between a steep embankment on one side and a wall of old timber on the other. You can't see the far end until you're fully committed to the turn. Locals say the curve feels aware of you, which sounds like a thing someone says until you've driven it at night, and then it sounds like a plain description of the facts. The ghost story is called The Lady in White. The oldest version says she was a young bride killed here in the 1920s when a Model T slid off the embankment on her wedding night. A later version makes her a hitchhiker, struck and left for dead in the 1950s. The details change with the telling. What doesn't change? She appears during storms. She wears pale clothing, a long dress, something old-fashioned, and she comes to stalled cars. Some accounts say she knocks on windows. Others say she hums something tuneless before she disappears. Locals say don't look at her face. Truckers avoid stopping near that bend after dark. I grew up 2 counties over. I knew the story. When my engine died, it didn't cross my mind. I turned the key. Nothing. Again, nothing. I locked the doors, put the hazards on, and called for a tow. The dispatcher, a guy named Mike, said maybe an hour, maybe more. The roads were flooding. Stay safe. He clicked off. The storm worked on the roof. Past the glass, everything was rain and dark and the shapes of trees. The hazard lights pulsed amber across the wet pavement. I breathed and waited. 10 minutes in, I glanced through the passenger side window and stopped breathing. There was a figure at the tree line, 50 feet out, at the exact edge where the hazard light died. Pale clothing, head bowed, hair or a hood hanging forward across what should have been a face, not moving. I cataloged the explanations: a jogger, a neighbor's kid cut off by the storm, someone walking a dog. None of them held. This was a flooding rural highway at 9:30 at night, with no houses visible in either direction. A person caught in this rain would flag down a car. They would move toward warmth. They would do something. This figure was just standing there. I wiped the condensation off the window and looked again. Still there. I pointed my phone's flashlight toward the tree line. The beam dissolved in the downpour before it reached her. "Hey," I said through a 2-inch crack in the window. "You okay?" "Rain," Mike called back. The tow was delayed. Route 434 had flooded. Another hour. I told him about the woman at the trees. He said probably a local, told me to stay in the car. When I looked again, she was 30 feet away. I hadn't seen her move. She was simply closer, the way distance collapses in a dream when you look away and look back. Her outline was sharper now, long fabric soaked through and hanging in folds that looked wrong for any clothing made in the last several decades. Hair plastered flat across where her face should have been. My stomach clenched. 15 feet. 10. The pale fabric looked old, the kind of dress you see pressed behind museum glass or bleached out in a wedding photograph from 100 years ago. Where her face should have been, there was only dark. "What do you want?" My voice came out cracked. "Nothing. not a flinch. I gripped the wheel until my hands ached, and my heartbeat was louder than the rain. I considered running. I genuinely ran the scenario. Out of the car, into the flooding dark, with the trees and the embankment and whatever this was somewhere behind me. I decided against it. I tried 911. The call failed. I typed a text to my friend Josh. Car broke down on 17C by Devil's Elbow. Woman out here, not right. And watched the no bars icon blink at me. Message unsent. When I looked up from the phone, she was gone. The relief lasted 4 seconds. Something tapped the rear windshield. Soft, deliberate. The glass was fogged, but I could see a shape through it. Tall, pale, standing directly behind the car. I did not turn around. I watched the shape and stayed very still and tried to keep my breathing even. Then the humming started. Low, tuneless, no melody I could name. It began at some distance and approached. Not louder exactly, but closer, finding its way inside through the sealed windows and the locked doors. It moved through the interior of the car. It stopped. I checked the rear view. Empty. I turned. The road was empty. I exhaled. And there she was again, at the tree line, 50 feet out, head bowed, still, as though nothing had happened. I stared and refused to blink, watching for movement the way you watch a thing you're trying to catch. She didn't move. The instant I glanced down at my dead phone for half a second and looked back, she was 20 feet closer. Tom's headlights appeared at 11:03 p.m., sweeping through the rain. He rolled down the tow truck window. "You all right?" "There's a woman," I said, "at the tree line." He swung his flashlight toward the trees and held it there. "Nothing but rain and branches," he said. "This road messes with people, especially at night." He hooked the car to the rig, and we pulled out. I tried not to look back. In the red wash of the taillights, just before the curve swallowed it from sight, I saw her standing in the center of the road, head down, dress clinging to her frame, not moving. Tom didn't see a thing. They say the lady in white follows you home sometimes, especially if you spoke to her. That night in my apartment, listening to the rain on the windows, I kept thinking I heard it. Low, tuneless, just at the edge of hearing. The storm had already eaten 3 hours of my schedule by the time my plane touched down. A delay in Dallas, lightning too close to the runway, then the long crawl west across a flooded interstate in a rental car with wipers that smeared more than they cleared. Around 11:30, I caught an exit ramp with a gas station glow and a diner sign flickering in the rain, and I pulled into the lot of a single-story roadside motel. Exterior doors, painted concrete, a neon vacancy sign that buzzed like something was trapped inside it. One night, that was all. The room smelled of old carpet and the faint ghost of cigarettes. I ran my routine: deadbolt, security chain, window latch. Wet jacket laid flat over the heating unit, phone on the charger, lamp off. The weather app showed severe alerts until 2 a.m. Outside, rain struck the door like gravel thrown by the fistful. I was somewhere between awake and gone when 3 hard knocks snapped me upright. A man's voice came through the door, measured, unhurried, almost conversational. "Sir, I need some help. My car slid off the road." I went to the peephole. The fisheye gave me the brim of a baseball cap and a dark jacket and nothing else. He was standing too close, face above the lens, deliberately hidden. I scanned the walkway in both directions. It looked empty. He had not knocked at any other door. "I'll call someone for you," I said. "My battery's dead. Just open up for 1 second." That last part landed wrong. The preemptive, just 1 second, the reassurance offered before anyone asked for it. "What's your name?" I asked. A pause, a beat too long. "John." I picked up the room phone and tried the front desk. 8 rings, 9. I tried again. Nothing. I dialed 911, gave the dispatcher the motel name and exit number, and told her a man outside was asking me to open the door. She told me to stay inside, and that a deputy would come when one was available. The man knocked again while she was still on the line, softer this time, patient. "Sir, I'm not going anywhere." I described him for the dispatcher. She asked if I could hear anyone else. I went quiet and listened past the rain. A voice, low, off to the side, close. I lifted the curtain 1 inch. Under the walkway overhang, where the lamplight thinned to nothing, I made out 2 shapes, one at my door, one tucked into the angle where the walkway turned, holding a phone screen down, angled to catch movement inside. When the curtain shifted, the phone disappeared into a pocket. My hands moved without a full instruction from my brain. I shoved the dresser toward the door, wedged the luggage rack under the handle, and pushed my suitcase flat against the connecting door. My fingers were shaking. The keys on the nightstand rattled. The voice at the door shifted register, still calm, still controlled, but lower and quieter now. "Sir, I'm with the front desk. We've got a leak upstairs and I need to check your bathroom." 60 seconds earlier, he was a stranded motorist. I said nothing. Metal scraped against the latch plate. The security chain pulled taut and rang like a struck string. Then silence. A long exhale on the other side of the door. Quick footsteps moving away. I lifted the curtain again. Both figures were jogging toward the far stairwell. A door banged, an engine turned. Tires churned through standing water. No headlights. Red and blue light swept my curtain several minutes later. I checked the deputy's badge through the peephole before I touched the chain. The night clerk came up behind him. They walked the walkway with flashlights and found fresh scratches around my latch plate and muddy boot prints tracking from the stairwell to my door and back toward the rear lot. The deputy checked the highway ditch. No wrecked car, no skid marks, nothing. The clerk said a woman at the gas station had complained earlier about 2 men trying car door handles under the pump canopy. She'd left before he could take down her name. The deputy said similar reports had come in from 2 other small motels during the last couple of storms. The security camera system was offline. Rain had gotten into the wiring under the awning. The deputy shrugged. "Happens during storms," he said. He took my statement, noted the rental make and my room number, and told me to keep the chain on. I sat with every light on until the sky went gray. Photographed the scratches at checkout. The deputy texted a case number. I drove to a coffee shop, sat with my back to the wall, bag between my feet, and kept my eyes on the windows through my whole meeting. On the way home, I booked a hotel with interior corridors. I still set the chain. I still wedge the door. I still hang the do not disturb sign. What stayed with me was the tone. Calm, practiced, unhurried. He said he wasn't going anywhere, like patience was a tool he'd sharpened. The storm made his story sound reasonable. The calm made it feel safe. Neither of those things made it true. I have one rule now. Don't open the door for anyone you didn't call. Call the desk for them instead. If they're legitimate, they'll wait. If they're not, they'll leave. The scratches and the paint told me which kind he was. It was a Tuesday in October, the kind of Boston rain that isn't dramatic enough to cancel plans, but is persistent and cold enough to make you question every decision that brought you outside. I left work near Copley Square later than I'd intended, unlocked my bike from the rack, and started calculating the fastest route home before the weather got worse. It got worse almost immediately. I turned onto Beacon Street with my headlight cutting through the spray, hood cinched, trying to keep my phone and wallet dry in my inner chest pocket. At Arlington, I glanced toward the river. The Esplanade was empty. Storrow Drive threw orange light across the water, and the rain made everything look like it was underwater. I knew the pedestrian tunnels beneath Storrow, short stone underpasses, 40 feet each, curved ceilings, old graffiti over older graffiti. If I hit the Fairfield Street crossing, I could pick up the river path and ride all the way to the Mass Avenue Bridge, clear of traffic and the worst street flooding. I told myself I'd be through in under 10 seconds. I dropped off the curb and coasted in. My headlight raked wet stone. Water dripped from a ceiling seam in a steady metronome. The tunnel echo made the space feel longer than it was. Through the arch at the far end, I could see a thin slice of the Charles, dark and rough. I was halfway through when I stopped. Someone was standing at the far exit, just at the edge of the lamplight. Not a jogger sheltering from rain, not someone on a phone. They were turned toward me, feet wide, hands loose at their sides, hood up, still. "Hey," I said, keeping it casual. The tunnel threw it back flat. No response. The figure took one slow step forward and stopped, placing themselves squarely in the center of the arch. I checked behind me. The second one had slipped in from Beacon Street while I was watching the first. He was inside the tunnel now, close to the wall, already closer to me than felt right, moving with his head down and his shoulders pushed forward. The math was simple and unpleasant. One person sealing the exit, one person closing the entrance, 40 feet of narrow stone with no room to pass, and me, exactly in between. I rang my handlebar bell, 3 dings that sounded embarrassingly small in the tunnel. "Just passing through," I said. The man behind me kept walking. The one at the exit didn't move. For one genuinely stupid moment, I considered stopping to talk. Then the cleaner part of my brain delivered its verdict. It didn't matter what they wanted. What mattered was getting space. I stood on the pedals and rolled forward as though I'd simply decided to exit normally, keeping my eyes on the figure in the arch and aiming my front wheel slightly left, toward the curved wall, giving myself something to redirect off. 10 feet. 5. The person at the exit pulled a hand out of their jacket pocket. Pale fingers. Nothing else. That was the commit. I squeezed both brakes hard to load the tires, released instantly, and snapped the bars right toward the center of the tunnel. My rear wheel broke loose and threw a fan of water. They flinched, shoulders rotating just a fraction for just a second. And I drove straight at that opening, with my shoulder brushing the wall and my elbows out. We hit. My handlebar caught their forearm with a hollow thud. The bell rang wild. I heard a short, sharp sound that wasn't a word. My pedal scraped stone and sent a shock through my knee. The bike wobbled, shook, held. Then I was out. I sprinted down the Esplanade path, with water hitting my face and the chain ticking fast, not looking back. When I reached the open stretch near the hatch shell, I gave myself one glance. Both figures stood at the tunnel mouth. Neither was running. One raised an arm in a slow, unhurried wave. That wave did something cold to my stomach. I yanked my phone out with shaking, wet hands and called 911. Esplanade near Fairfield. The Storrow underpass. 2 people blocking both ends. The dispatcher asked if I was safe. I told her I was moving toward the Mass Avenue Bridge and would wait there in the light. I stopped under a lamp near the Dartmouth footbridge and breathed. The Charles was black and choppy. A couple in ponchos walked past without looking at me. Sirens sounded from somewhere, but I couldn't tell which direction. A state police cruiser rolled Sturo on the elevated road above. The dispatcher called back and routed me to the corner of Beacon and Dartmouth, where 2 troopers were waiting when I walked my bike up the footbridge stairs. A Boston PD unit pulled up a minute later. I walked them through everything: the step that blocked the exit, the second person materializing behind me, the hand coming out of the pocket. They asked about weapons. I said I hadn't seen one, only a hand, but that the setup was enough. One trooper swept the tunnel with a flashlight. Another ran Sturo with a spotlight. Nobody there. Rain had taken whatever footprints there might have been. They took my info and told me to use the main crossings at night, especially in bad weather, especially alone. I said I knew better. I meant it.